All right. I'll call this meeting to order at 6 p.m. This meeting is being recorded by committee chairs. If any other persons present are doing the same, please notify me at this time. Anthony from the recorder. We have one council remote, Councilor Bullock. Let's see, going to president's notes. Early conversation on setting a split tax rate or examining that, not really setting it. I had talked to Randy Austin in the assessing.
I did.
And he is totally in favor of doing early discussion. And he was maybe going to try to be here tonight remotely. He was going to talk to the Board of Assessors and talk about potentially doing a joint meeting in August.
Okay.
So that I think they have some things to present and try to get questions from counselors so that as we get closer to setting that tax rate, he knows exactly what information counselors want instead of all happening at the end. So that was the conversation we had. Could have been August, could have been September, but it sounded like he was up for
Do
August.
you want to do like a presentation? Like, I know I heard your voicemail, like, does he want to do that in like subcommittee or is he wanting to just present to the full council?
I think he wants to do Ways and Means. So that, because I don't remember last year, but there were lots of questions that came up in the meeting that you were actually setting the tax rate.
Was that our full meeting though? That's.
Yes, the full, and so
Are the amount of questions that are going to be asked or desired, is there going to be enough interest in that meeting, is what I'm saying. To be frank, are other counselors going to attend that meeting if they have questions about the tax rate? Or is it going to be, we're going to do this at that subcommittee, and then when we go in like November, December to set the tax rate, are all those questions going to then come up? Like if he's trying to preemptively do it, I would strongly encourage anyone who may be interested or have questions about how the tax rate's done to certainly attend that.
That's a great idea. Well, I think we would like to.
If it's not going to be a presenter at the full.
Right. I mean, I think these are just some ideas and he did send me a link of videos that I can forward to the council too, that he thought would be helpful for people trying to understand setting the tax rate and different things about assessing. So kind of an informal meeting. I get the.
Okay.
So I don't know how you feel if you want it to be him or I think he was going to check with the Board of Assessors, had a meeting this morning to see if they were available. But I know he's available in August.
Okay.
Just as a reminder, if you have additional counselors attend your meeting, they cannot participate in the meeting because then that creates a quorum of the council. So they wouldn't be able to ask the questions.
Which is why I was wondering if that were not, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's worth a discussion with him on or an executive decision from the legislative executive on whether or not to present. That was why I was wondering if would an initial conversation with the full council, almost like an invitee city employee, right? We got that like 10 minutes per person or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
City department be pertinent to have that start the conversation so that any questions that may arise from folks who aren't on Ways and Means, they could funnel them and then maybe invite him to a September Ways and Means committee. That was
The assessor is logging in. It's not quite there.
My thoughts on that were, I think we should have a discussion committee. Because it's really unwieldy at the full council and Ways and Means should be the venue for all those.
Sure.
And again, encouraging councils to watch that.
Or in advance of that meeting, if we know it's going to happen in August.
Yep.
In advance of that, send in questions they have to myself,
Because my guess is they'll do a presentation and that will spur questions. That's the idea, spur them on now.
Right.
Instead of at a full council meeting when we have to make a decision.
Right. Okay.
So Council Bullock has her hand up. So
Oh, Councilor
I just
Bullock?
wanted to make sure.
You guys got there. I was just gonna say that if you just had a call for questions ahead of the meeting, I think that would suffice so that other counselors who can't participate could at least get their questions answered ahead of time. But I just want you to know, Mike, I watch every Ways and Means Committee meeting, even if I don't attend.
That's fine. I appreciate it.
Did we want to, I could recognize Randy if he wants to speak to about if the Board of Assessors were available.
Hey, there he is.
Hi,
Howdy.
yeah, I'm here and I wanted to just attend to try and be proactive about information that we're gonna have prepared for the council at classification time. So we had talked about a few different things, or a couple different things came up. For example, the residential exemption, and more questions were asked about it. And at the time, it kind of came up at the last second. And so this year we're trying to be proactive, and I wanted to just say, hey, what is it that you want to hear about? And we actually do even have some information already prepared about that residential exemption and some other information that we can present to Ways and Means, but also if there's anything else from any other participants that they are interested in. I think we also talked about the split tax rate is something else that we can prepare some information prior and in advance so that the public, you know, we also won't be springing this on the public. It's something that we'll be talking about at these meetings and people will be aware of, so that if we were to adopt something, or for example, split the tax rate, it won't just be a big surprise for the general public and everyone at large.
Yeah.
And what do you think about the Board of Assessors having a joint meeting? We were discussing whether it should, this August could be a joint meeting, or if it should just be you coming to Ways and Means.
Yeah, so yeah, it would be a joint meeting if we have more than one of the Board of Assessors attend. And since I'm a member of the board, then, you know, yeah, I think that we would have to post it that way in advance, because I'm pretty sure, and we did have a meeting this morning, and I talked about the meeting that I was going to attend tonight. And we are, you know, I think at the one point, or when we have that meeting with the Board of Assessors, that it would be like a joint meeting at that point too, because I think that they want to be involved in the process.
That sounds great. I think we should shoot for that then.
Do you want to do that to open it up, or that's kind of, I guess, logistically where I'm looking at it, like, would August be pertinent for like Randy to present something on behalf of them? And then if we can kind of gauge what questions we get before that meeting, because it's only next or 2 weeks from now, right?
Yeah.
And then maybe could we, and not that I want to burden you with more time either, Randy, but if something stemmed out of that spurred more questions from counselors or public, then make a joint meeting in September. I don't know if that would be too much time
No,
to
I
try to
think that-
grab from you guys.
I think that that's a good timeline, and I agree with you that, yeah, once we start presenting some information, that that might spur some more questions, and so that'll give us some more time to get the answers to those and have all the information prepared well in advance, as opposed to trying to do everything at the last second. So I was glad that Councilor Bottomley reached out to me, and we had been talking about it on and off in our meetings about how we wanted to get in on one of the next Ways and Means meetings to have this discussion.
Yeah.
So I guess my question is, if we call the joint meeting, then is it like, are we required to do a joint meeting? So like if people don't show up, or if we don't have a quorum of, like, say, the Board of Assessors, does that present a problem?
So your safest bet is to post it as a joint meeting if you're going to have two people there. I think I just heard you suggest, and please tell me if I'm wrong, that in August, Randy come to the meeting, not another assessor member.
I mean, they could if they wanted, but it wouldn't
And
be required like a posting kind of thing, like.
But if there are two of them there and they're both gonna participate in the
Randy, show up on
discussion.
here.
I mean, I'm just thinking, it sounds like what I'm hearing is people on the board are interested to come and speak to the council. That's the only reason, I mean, the more the merrier if they're interested. I don't want to force people to take another night, but if you get if Randy, if you think the sense is that the board would like to be involved in that conversation, I'm fine with posting it as a joint meeting.
So you mean for the August meeting?
Yeah, but this is up to you know, whatever you guys feel is best.
I mean, I'll reiterate what I just said. I think possibly an avenue to go is we don't know what's going to be presented. So rather than take up the whole board twice, maybe. And correct me if this is out of line, Randy, on that. If having a representative on the initial talk and you know, summation of what's going on before any extra questions might be added. And then once those extra questions are added, if we were to invite the whole board for September to, I don't know, dial in on that presentation, dial in on those questions that are asked. I don't know. That's just my suggestion, but again, not wanting to have more folks attend if it doesn't seem fruitful at the time. Or ask for-
Understood. So yeah, I'm fine with that suggestion. You know, my board has, you know, is a more active board than I've dealt with in other towns, and they actually, you know, the residential exemption information that I'm presenting was prepared by one of them. And so we're also going to have another meeting prior to this, the Ways and Means meeting later here in August. And I can field questions at that time. And if they feel so compelled that they want to be in on it, well, I'll suggest what you're suggesting, basically, that I'll go present some information and then we'll get feedback and then we can all be in on the next meeting in September. You know, I'm fine with that. But if they, for some reason, feel compelled or motivated, we'll still have a sufficient amount of time to be able to post it and update the agenda accordingly.
That sounds great.
Either of those options is fine with me.
As I said, I do already have some information, you know, together about the residential exemption, and there was another one that was affordable housing exemption or something like that, that initially one of our board members thought was going to work in our favor and would be something that, you know, would help lower income families. But now that we've done a little bit more research, it's kind of seeming that that might not be the case. But that's part of what we want to present, is sort of what we have. And again, you're right, questions will probably come out of that. So, you know, there's a couple other things that when I'm doing the presentation that we're voting on, and it's part of the classification process, you know, that I didn't mention. You know, there's a small business exemption, and I didn't really present a ton of information about that, but we could expand on that. There's also, we vote on whether to adopt open space, which historically we haven't. And so initially when I started, I kind of brushed over some of these things because they're not necessarily appropriate for Greenfield or what we've historically been doing. But at the same time, we want to make sure that everyone knows and understands the process, especially counselors, because it's a big responsibility being a counselor, as all of you know, and hopefully everyone's taking seriously, because we're running the city of Greenfield. And, you know, it's a city that has a budget of excess of $80 million. So, you know, we better be taking it serious and doing our jobs.
Excellent. So I think we'll go forward then with you coming to Ways and Means. And if you do talk to the board and you get, if there's enough time to post that, if you get a lot of interest that they want to come in August, then perhaps we can adjust. But right now, I think that's a good plan, because I think more questions will come out of August. And then maybe a more robust discussion in September.
Yeah. No, I mean, if they have the zeal to go gung ho in August and feel that, I don't want to get in the way of that either. Like, I was just kind of posturing, like, if people want to be there both months, great. It's more information, more heads. You
So
know,
I move that we flip a coin aside.
I'll let them decide at their own meeting on whether or not they.
Well, I did mention to them that I would be coming to tonight's meeting and some of the information that I was going to talk about, and it gave them the opportunity, you know, to, if they wanted to replace me and be the person that came to the meeting, But what the feedback that I got was that they will have the opportunity to watch this meeting and they'll see what was said, and then
Gotcha.
so we'll have that to go off of when we talk to, have our next meeting, which would be, a couple Tuesdays from now. So in 2 Tuesdays. So when is the Ways and Means meeting in
3
August?
Tuesdays.
No, 2 Tuesdays.
Yeah, so that probably.
Now?
Yeah.
Oh, from now,
We're
yeah.
meeting on the same date, August 20th.
Yeah, okay, so then that's probably our next meeting.
That's the same
'cause it
date as
won't
the
be-
Ways and Means meeting.
All right, and so then I'd have to know prior to that. We couldn't
Like-
update the agenda and give proper
Like
notice.
next Wednesday or Thursday. Next Wednesday or Thursday.
Just post it as a joint meeting. And then if we need another joint meeting, so. It was nice of you to try and save their time.
I didn't know when you guys met. Is it always the third Tuesday?
Well, it's been basically the first and third Tuesday.
First and third.
The website says that we meet on, I think, the first Tuesday and then as needed. But we've basically been doing the first and third.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're gonna post it as a joint.
August and September joint meetings.
Yes, let's do that, and then everybody knows, and
Good thing you're using pencil, not a pen.
Sure.
we're such a decisive group.
And,
All right,
and that's for discussion of split tax rate. You're not voting on anything for
right,
August and September, correct?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
We're preparing information for the classification hearing so
Got
that
it.
we are, fulfilling the needs of the council information wise.
That's our fun, what's that, November, December, right?
Yeah, I was actually just trying to remember. It is like
October, November, December. October, November, preferably, not
So our
December.
goal in the assessor's office, our goal is to have all of our data entry done by September 15th so that we can start crunching our numbers. And then we'll just, crunch our numbers and adjust to the market in our database and then submit our information. The goal would be October 15th to be able to do that. And then it will go through the Department of Revenue and the approval process, which usually, can take anywhere from a couple of days to a couple of weeks. But our goal is to have that prior. Historically, it's usually the second week in November when a lot of towns are having their classification hearing. And I'd like to be able to do it, prior to that, if we have the option, on Halloween, we could have a classification hearing if we have all our approvals, in place, because it's really not the council that sets the date for the classification. You can't have that hearing until I have my approval and we're ready to move forward. So my goal is and has been to get that information ready so that we have plenty of time, and then we're not, as I'm sure in a couple of years past, you can remember, we're setting the tax rate like in December.
If we don't want to do
And that
that.
type of thing, and it's a crunch time, and whether can we get the bills out in time and that type of thing. Well, if we're proactive in the assessor's office and have all our ducks in a row, we're going to get that done and be done before November. And we don't have to have the classification hearing done, but then we don't have to open it and then have it, reopened at the next meeting and those type of things. So that is my goal in the assessor's office, is to try and get that approval as soon as possible so that we have as much time as we need on the other end.
excellent.
We received that bill around like the fourth Thursday. It's like, thanks for giving me this tax bill.
Right.
Yeah, you get it right around Christmas.
Yeah, exactly.
Merry
That's
Christmas.
the actual bills that go out in January. And those
That's
will be the
right.
ones.
Okay, moving on to the next discussion on appointment of a parliamentarian. I was thinking about pushing this back another month, just to think about this a little bit more. Will Roberts has left us as our parliamentarian. And I've got to think about and maybe seek some input from you guys about a process for how we're going to try to build that. But it doesn't really feel urgent at the moment to me, but
So you want to move it to September?
yeah.
Okay, not that it makes any difference. I will not be at your meeting in September. I got other things going on.
Yeah.
What could you possibly have going on?
I'll be in the gym.
The next one is update on scheduling a public hearing for opioid funds, and that's Counselor Bullock.
Yeah, so we are going, we've had our first meeting of the like advisory committee for this. We're going to hold off on the public hearing until there's a financial order in front of us for this money. But we are gonna hold a people's hearing, so we can do whatever the heck we want instead of abiding by all the rules. Except for have a quorum of counselors discussing council business. So we're just gonna do that instead. So this, you don't have
Who's
to worry,
having the hearing?
we have a financial order.
Let's hear it.
That's great.
Who's holding?
Yeah.
Who's holding the hearing? Who's holding the hearing, Marianne? Council Bullock?
The council will need to hold a public hearing when we have a financial order in front of us, which will be like months down the line. But
Right.
the advisory committee is gonna hold a people's hearing, totally separate on our own, not a formal public hearing process. And that way we don't have to deal with all the questions of how to run a public hearing and do we do it at a full council and it'll be in a much more accessible space. So,
So there's no action on this,
Right.
no,
right? Okay.
not till we have a financial order, which will hopefully be like,
Will
no,
automatically trigger the public
So you're
hearing.
telling us some community members have decided that they might want to get together and talk about this somewhere.
there's an advisory committee that has been appointed by the mayor, and those folks are gonna hold a people's hearing, we're calling it, not a public hearing.
We love our red tape.
The next one is proclamation to declare September Stephen King Month. I'm assuming that could go right to council floor.
I think we should send it to A and O and have them debate it for 6 months and then we can do it again. No, I'm sorry. No, I can even do that at council.
For
Um,
August.
I don't understand why September, like, shouldn't it be October? Was he born in September?
I don't know where this came from, so I don't,
Well, there's
Okay.
okay,
in the packet.
either want to talk about, I mean, it's also maybe like,
I saw the email,
September's also send your kid back to school month.
yeah, I saw the email more than 5 days ago, which means I don't.
No, that's changed to August, right? We send our kids back to school in August now.
I like that wrapping up schedule on
Sure.
the 3-day week, 4-day week, and then an actual 5 week.
I think it came from the Garden Cinema.
Oh.
And the
Came
only, the only rationale I remember was that it was like a slower economic month than October, and so this was like a lead up to a bigger economic month, so they were like, let's make September Stephen King month instead.
Okay.
Send it to the council for August. To declare it in.
yes. Unless Cedars wants to debate the,
Merits.
Councilor Bullock has her hand up on.
Oh, she just did before.
No, that was why. Also, there's a Stephen King film festival in September. I think that was why they were gonna hold a film festival.
yes, yeah.
Okay.
The next one is request for council to sign code of civility, and I just wanted to, before I talk about this, wanted to mention again that the first draft was submitted by Councilor Bullock. And then I asked A&O to take it on, and they put forward, which is what here, Councilor Gola put forward with A&O's discussion. They found an older city code of civility. And what they determined was essentially to ask me to ask city councilors to sign this. And I did consult with Will Roberts as my last time consulting with him as parliamentarian. And I decided, at least for going this route, I was in agreement with him that I think we have the tools for Robert's rules to enforce uncivil behavior. So I don't really want to take that approach as president to make people sign that, even though the request was to make them to sign it voluntarily. But I wanted to get the feedback of committee chairs, because as we have it set right now, committee chairs or the president can remove people from meetings. So I don't know. It didn't really feel like it's totally voluntary when we asked people to voluntarily sign something. And it also felt like it was, I don't know. I don't know that I felt it was necessary.
I like it.
I'll say that.
That's one of those things that keeps like coming up perennially and always just kind of goes away.
I mean, as it stands coming forward, there's no real enforcement in it. So it just, I'm just not sure what it does.
Well, I can share that I think what it does is like when I sign my name to something, it means that like there's some level of respect and adherence. I'm not going to sign a contract that I don't plan to, or intend to follow. I would 100% agree, Counselor Bottomley, that we have the tools to enforce uncivil behavior. My experience is that that just hasn't happened. And so like I'm like, cool, we don't have to sign this. All we can do is ask people to sign it and have them sign their name. And if that doesn't mean you're gonna, abide by what you put your name on, then that's up to you. And aside from that, I think what I would like to see then is some like sort of concrete understanding of what the enforcement will look like moving forward and for what types of things. And so
I think that
Yeah.
would go back. I guess that was my thing is it felt like it was putting it back on the president. And I don't know. I feel like, again, if we're just signing something, we want rules specifically, it starts into getting modifying behavior or legislating behavior. Are we going to have a list? I don't know. I feel like A&O should do that if they want to put in ordinance and they want the city council to vote on it. But as president, I feel maybe I haven't done it as well as I should, but I think counselors can also make points of order if they feel there's uncivil behavior. But I just worry the more you start even talking about putting controls for the president, I just worry about things getting political.
I mean, it's city council, so it's going to be political. It's literally
Yeah, no, I
politics.
agree. Hence why I don't think we need this. I mean, I could have everyone raise their hand if they're, I believe, if I ask, I believe personally in my heart that every counselor that's serving believes in civility. Whether we achieve it all the time, I don't know, but, okay.
I was just gonna say, I think I agree with you and I agree with Will Roberts that while I understand the thought of it, I think that that's implied. And though, yeah, it's not always maybe received the same way, or certain, folks might have a different demeanor or way of saying things. I will say that throughout the years that I grew up here, I've seen a lot of city councils. I've seen a lot of change of folks in there. And there have been a lot of people who are politely rude in the way that they say things. So it also, civility at that point becomes a subjective term where I know that I have a more abrasive front to me. I'm more outspoken than a lot of folks are. I try to be polite while I'm making my point. And then there are a lot of people who I know who have kind of more floofy language to what they're doing, but they're actually a little bit more vindictive when it really comes down to it, even though, lack of a better term, they're making shit taste good while they're saying it. So that case in point right there, right? I'm just trying to make a point, so I'm using this profane language to say it. Like it depends on a person's sensibilities on what they consider civil behavior versus somebody who doesn't. And I know that we all know across the years, some of these folks I'm talking about, who I'm sure you could put into both of those boxes or many other boxes, right? So I don't know. I mean, I would hope that it's implied that people are going to try to be as decent as possible if you're holding public office. And just some people might have a different way of doing that. So unless there's something like really, like, I think what you were saying, John, was like something like concrete that kind of outlines what is and is not, you know, like a misdemeanor. Right? Or whatever for it. Like, how do you punish that? Because if somebody gets offended more easily by someone's tone or by their word choice, are we necessarily going to try to ostracize the person who said it because of one or two people's feelings on it when it maybe from a larger standpoint wouldn't have been viewed that way? So I really feel like that's like getting into the weeds, like you said, of behavioral issues. Whereas Robert's rules, I think, does have those mechanisms. If you are, you know, out of line, someone can slap their hand on the table and say, "For shame, sir," or however, you know, they want to bring it up as a point of order. I think we kind of already got it covered.
Any more thoughts on that, or?
Yeah, I think I agree with a lot of what you're saying, Mike. And I agree, like over the years, I've been like utterly horrified at what happens on council floor, like before my time. And also felt like I've watched councils work really well together and they're like it ebbs and flows kind of. And John, this is not a reflection of your leadership at all. I think that this was something that was brought up before you were president, right? For many reasons. You know, the things I'm thinking of, which I like want to be really specific so that because I do think it's important to name like what is acceptable behavior and what isn't, and like with your colleagues, and this idea that like as a council we would for some reason not work civilly or amicably across difference, like as just a natural way of working among a body. I think we do really well. We do really well at that, but there has been times where that hasn't been the case. And so specifically, I just want to name if we're not going to all, or every council isn't going to say, these are the sort of boundaries of respect, like being respectful of one another that we are adhering to, right? We're not going to defame each other. We're not going to speak, we're not going to raise our voice at one another. We're not like very sort of basic rules of civility and dialogue. I want to be clear that like, I am going to try to be really intentional moving forward of using Robert's rules so that if a counselor is aggressively and rudely questioning a city employee and raising their voice at them and cutting them off. Like that's a thing I've seen happen in recent months. And I don't think it's appropriate, even if I don't agree with the city, what the city employee is saying. And yeah, there's a list of other things, and I can be more practiced in using Robert's rules if that is what we're gonna say, is that like we are relying on Robert's rules to enforce on civil behavior. I'll do that.
I think it's the best we've got, because otherwise really we're elected by the people. So if the people that elected us think we're being uncivil, then they can recall us. I mean, that's the extreme version of it. I don't know. But yeah, the question becomes about enforcement and how effective it is.
Kathy, didn't we have one of these in the past that was part of the process, was that you signed like a code of conduct for the city?
So that's what, there is a code of civility. I can't tell you when it was put into effect or if people ever signed it. I don't have that memory. It was put into effect before I was clerk. I know that much. But we couldn't find exactly when it was put into effect and how it was put into effect. So we have that missing piece of information. But the code of civility is here, you know, we have it. We've reformatted it a little bit since the discussion came about to include a signature line in case anyone wanted, you know, put it into place so that we were ready to go. But I have that missing gap and I'm sorry that I can't fill it.
Well, the question is, Counselor Golub isn't here, so I don't know if it should go back to A and O or not. Because she's not here to ask whether, she told me she couldn't be here tonight.
Do you,
Sense to leave it until next month.
do you want to put it on September committee chairs?
Yeah, let's do that.
That good?
I honestly, like, I'm like, at this point, this has gone on for 2 years. Like, this has been a thing, like, you know, President Gwynn told me to like resurface this information. You know, after I was like publicly disparaged by another counselor. And so that's where this came from, just so it's wide out in the open. And it's now been 2 years. To be 100% honest, I don't really care. I have a year left and what's going to happen is going to happen. And I think Counselor Bottomley, either way, like it's kind of going to fall on you no matter which way it happens.
That is true.
It's frankly on you already because you're the president too.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, all I can say is I rely on all of you. So again, I would just ask for help at the meetings so that it's really clear. Because sometimes I'm watching a lot of different things and it doesn't strike me the same way. So I think points of order would help.
Well, like
me.
with censure, that could be brought up by anybody.
Right, right. So just help. That's all I ask for.
I will just say, like, when I experienced what I experienced from another counselor a couple of years ago, it did feel, I felt supported in that the council like had a formal act against that person's actions. I felt supported in that. And I think that when there's like egregious things like that, it's important for the council to take a stand. And I do believe and hope and trust that we're like in our civil era and that's what's happening moving forward.
Okay, thanks for all your thoughts on that. So I guess we will leave that off, but it certainly could, it's resurfaced over the years.
So don't put it on September for next month.
Right,
Don't
let's leave that off.
remove.
The next two are voting on renaming the fields, the baseball diamond and the fields. I think with all the discussion and all the committees that have gone on, this can probably come direct to city council. I don't think it has to.
Actually, I thought we had already done our part with that. I was confused to see this yet.
It was really convoluted. We had to vote to initiate it.
Oh, okay,
And then
okay.
it had to go back to several committees, schools, planning, and then they recommend us, and then we have to vote it.
Got it.
I think it was like really an act of Congress. To memorialize the ones.
And of which every one from the mayor down to every
Right.
city has been enthusiastic about
Right.
this, so
So
unanimously.
straight to the council floor for August.
And then there are mayor's appointments and reappointments. I did talk to Counselor Golub about this because that would be the only thing on A&O's agenda. And I think that those few people that could also go directly to.
Straight to council.
And then the last thing is the city election warrant.
No big.
Right. This one is not a big deal. It's still all on one page. In October, when you read November's, you're gonna take some deep breaths.
Yeah.
Those will be a long one.
So I'm not
That
gonna
could
be there for October's meeting.
That usually goes straight to council.
Oh, no. Our speed reader, we're doomed without you.
You stuck me that the last 2 years.
I'll read it this time.
This is the, like, the pages,
Oh,
because it's got all the
Yeah.
questions that'll be on there.
I'll read it this time, Mike, if you want me to. I've read it before.
So I'm not gonna attend, that's good.
Oh.
Um,
we need you. So EDC.
so EDC, we had invited, or I believe talked about inviting the energy director, Carol Collins, to come and speak about I believe it was specifically get electric powered vehicles, but I think it really could be opened up to anything energy related. How do you feel about that?
That sounds great. This is the meeting. I cannot attend. I need someone else to chair. I'm having surgery that day, so I will be on drugs.
Who would you? Who would you like to chair the meeting? Do
Um,
you have a committee member that you would like to have chair the meeting?
I mean, if Derek can do it, that would be great. I can text him. Yeah, that would be wonderful if Derek could do it. I think that Counselor Minhas is out this month, so
For a good portion of the.
probably make sure we'll have a quorum. Because I don't think I won't even be in attendance.
It's Tuesday, August 13th, so next Tuesday, I believe.
Yep.
We're not gonna have a forum, I could go, but I'm trying to work that night.
August, next Wednesday.
Thursday,
Minute.
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
I believe I can attend that too, if he also, that might just be safest Tuesday.
Yeah, because Counselor Minhas we don't have until the 19th. Is that correct?
He said he would try to log in, but he's out of the country, so I don't think he felt,
Yeah.
yeah, probably not. And they have a huge time difference too.
So you're gonna find out if Derek can share.
Yep.
And then you're gonna let Tammy know.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And you're gonna attend the meeting, and then we just need one other person for the quorum.
Yeah,
Counselor Garrett will most likely be there. He's
Okay.
yeah, and I did want this possible submission, at the planning board. They talked about creating a housing task force. Housing zoning task force, I believe, to look at the issues that he presented. So I believe there's nothing coming forward this month, about that.
Yeah, the only other thing was that Chuck Green is gonna come do a presentation and I am gonna allow him 10 minutes instead of the normal. He was gonna try to do it in 3 and that seems crazy. So
For Chuck.
For what?
That's great. So
For what?
Chuck Green will come to that meeting, the 13th meeting.
yeah, it's on a proposal to allow like living in campers.
Do we have any information on this?
Oh, I wonder if he,
I can forward it to you because there's also a presentation that needs to be put up.
Come on, committee chair.
dude, I never got that for committee chairs. Did we, I didn't, somehow I missed this. Was it discussed in?
Let me see. Oh, you know why? He sent it to John Garrett, not you. I thought the John on here was John Bottomley.
So can that be done in September so that we can have,
It would have to be.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll tell him to come in September and not,
okay. Can you send us the information?
yeah, I'll forward this to you. Sorry, I thought it was wrong John.
No, that's okay.
I could see the mistake
Yeah.
happening, yeah. The Mikes and 2 Johns.
So that's EDC, and there's no A&O, since those appointments will come directly to council.
So A&O's canceled, right?
Yeah, and then I did have a question on community relations, because there was a discussion updates from refugees, which we did not talk about. In the paper, service that said they didn't get the invitation somehow.
It was emailed. It was
Yeah,
sent.
I mean, I saw the email that
Right,
went to
so
them.
the question was, do we want to, probably wouldn't happen this month, but talk about inviting them again to some meeting? I don't know how to proceed with that.
So
I mean, did they say that they want to come to a CRC meeting? I
They
mean,
did not say that in the paper.
yeah, so they were
So
invited.
many words.
I saw on the, and anyone wants to go public
Invitation
records, yeah.
yeah, So,
And honestly, if they said, oh, we're not available this month, could we do this next
Right.
month? You know, I've always been
Different.
super flexible.
So-
I would have been happy to put it on for next
isn't
month.
on the agenda, but when someone tells us to invite ServiceNet, who? You know,
Oh, that's
I mean,
fair.
no,
Right.
we send it to like a,
They already email?
yeah, I mean, Tammy didn't know who to send it to, so she called there and she said, this is what I'm looking for, who should I send it to? So we need a little bit more content,
Yeah.
context.
You know what else
When-
though? It's like if you received an email that was obviously meant for the assessor's office, you would just forward it.
Yeah.
I do the same thing at work
Yeah.
all the time. People think just because I work at UMass, I know when their homework is due.
Yeah,
And I forward the email on to, but I mean,
right.
you did your due diligence. So unless they're asking for us to set aside some time,
And
I'd be happy to do that.
And no one called and said, hey, we didn't get an invitation.
Yeah, they just said it in the
Or,
newspaper, yeah.
so,
But
and that's fine, you know, maybe they didn't, somebody was on vacation, lots of things happen, but we don't know what we can't correct.
I had an out of office reply now.
Yeah, so probably when there's.
Yeah, and I'm totally willing to discuss that topic if necessary, if they want to come talk to us and give their side of, you know, how they see things. Happy to do it. But if they're not asking, I'm not offering.
Gotcha. Excellent. So the only other thing on there was the declaration of the Stephen K. month.
I think that's going,
No, my committee might want to run that one through.
so is the proclamation going straight to council? I thought.
Yes.
Okay.
So there wouldn't be any CRC.
So we're canceling CRC, yes. Okay.
Bill, I want to hear ye, hear ye.
You need to.
September 1st.
Yes.
I'm into it.
Ways and Means just has that revoking the opioid settlements fund as their one agenda item, and then the early discussion.
So it's essentially, we're
Because we're putting,
talking to the assessors.
yes, exactly, yeah. And hopefully, and I'm sure that will, yeah. And then the clerk's report has the primary election update and enforcement of the 5-day rule.
This-
So
Let the record show.
we are in the throes of the September election. Over the past week, we have probably mailed out 2,500 ballots to people throughout. That's not an exact number, a quotable number, but that's off the top of my head. More come in every day. We're feverishly preparing for it.
Are these just for mail-ins?
Those are just for mail-ins. We still have a week of early voting to go at the end of August.
Right.
A week plus a Saturday. So, we'll have that.
Much primary interest?
It's a presidential year.
No, it is.
There's interest
Also
abounding.
shocked that there's that much primary interest.
So the 5-day rule. So I had a conversation with John a week or so ago. About the July council meeting, there were 4 versions of the council packet that went out. The first one, the original one. We noticed something in the office that wasn't on there that was supposed to be, so we sent a second one. And then we sent a third one because some department head wanted to do some introductions. And then we sent a fourth one to add something under communications from a department head. So the 5-day rule was instituted several years ago because in the 49th hour, everyone was sending everything. So an agreement was made with the then council president, I can't remember who, to give the office some time to be able to put a packet together, to format the pages. This was before any Zoom links or anything like that had to be put on there. And I said to John, we have a 5-day rule. either support it or toss it out the window because it's not being upheld. And we are busier in the general clerk council office than ever, and I'm not just including elections. I'm putting it through, every facet that you can imagine. But something needs to be done, either support it or toss it out the window. If I had a vote, which I do not, I would say, please support it. Because everything that was added to the agenda for the third and fourth packet was not an emergency. It was not something that should have prompted additional agendas to be put out. If people miss the deadline, you miss the deadline. If it's not an emergency, let's just pump the brakes and say no, because guess what? You meet next month too. And it might be after the event or whatever has taken place. But we're all busy doing lots of different things. And although I'm not saying it's not important, it's not an emergency. And I would like the support of the council and for counselors to pay attention to the 5-day rule also. I'm not taking anybody out of this, to support the 5-day rule, please.
I second that.
All
Yep.
for it. I remember last year when some stuff was coming up that was skirting, like, now all of a sudden there's a bold thing on there that this was reported at, 14:38:52 on Wednesday. And you're like, well, and we would all say, like, none of us are getting this information early enough to even,
Oh, yeah. I
Go through it.
Email at 4:59 and then go to city council at 6:30 and.
no, I mean, unless it's, like you said, if it's not if it's nothing that's gonna warrant a physical trip with that 48-hour notice that we have to have an emergency meeting that's hand delivered to our house, then it's not important enough to be on the agenda.
That's
That's a
what I mean?
good, that's a special meeting.
yeah.
But that's what I mean. is
That's right.
That would
I mean,
be
it is-
because those are emergent or important enough
Yeah.
to warrant a special meeting. So if the information given to us 48 hours ahead of our meeting isn't literally something that would have warranted a special meeting, like you said, it can wait till the next meeting.
So
So that goes out to both me
that goes out.
and to all the counselors.
Yeah.
It includes
Tammy
Tammy
does send a reminder.
and me,
Yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
Tammy sends reminders. Believe me, Tammy
Yes,
sends
no, we've seen
reminders.
this.
I see them.
And the 5-day rule is on page 17.
Yeah.
If anybody would like to read it and change anything in it, you can do that. That is your
Like-
5-day rule.
Okay.
Mary Ann has her hand up.
Counselor Bullock.
I also totally support this. I think what I've seen over the last few years is sometimes the 5-day rule is enforced and sometimes it isn't. And I have been like, how and who gets to bypass this? So I don't know what the mechanism is. I will say when I was getting those emails, I was like, what is happening? Like, why I missed the most current agenda when I looked at it. But yeah, I agree with the hard and fast. Like if there's an emergency, we hold an emergency meeting. But if there's not an emergency, it can wait until next time. I don't think it's fair to make one person's emergency everyone's emergency unless it really is.
If it's
Everyone's,
not on fire, it's not an emergency.
yeah, like I
Pretty
say in my house, fire, flood, or blood, So
It's so good. We're in agreement.
So the 5-day rule is in
Force-
effect.
Force it. Why not?
And it started this month.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
You're gonna put out a reply, I'm sorry, you were not receiving the 5 days.
Received at 5:05.
So, and that's not to say that if a department head doesn't have something coming,
Right.
but they don't meet until the 4th day, like send an email. If we know it's coming, we can plan for it. And that's really what happened this month. Not everybody's schedule fits into the 5-day rule. I get it. But if you know it's coming and you know it has to come down the council path, let us know. I mean, we're only cranky during elections. That
Uh,
Budget.
That wasn't.
So draft of city council meetings, this all looks good to me. The big thing in the beginning, we should talk about executive session. We were going to go into executive session for two reasons, to talk about cybersecurity and to approve or review release of executive session minutes.
That's this month, right?
Yes, and so I wanted to also ask when we would get those. I know we get them in a confidential form, but when we get those, how soon will we get those minutes for counselors to review?
I think, so there's a recent executive session from January that we are already late on. And we actually found a few hidden, not in the computer, that are older. I think we could probably get those out to the council at least by the beginning of next week. They would come under secure email.
Yeah.
Like we normally do, if that is acceptable to you. Do you want? So cybersecurity, IT was going to come.
Yes, yeah, that'd be great.
And do you want, for the executive session minutes, do you want legal counsel?
That was the big question.
And in the past, they've been physically present. That's why we would schedule the executive session, the beginning, and probably have the minutes first and then the cybersecurity second.
Oh, so the lawyers could leave afterwards. So we would also
Yeah.
want to, it might be ideal if someone suspended the rules of procedure, yeah.
So that's what we would have to
Yeah.
do on the agenda to.
Yeah.
Would you like an attorney there for the minutes or the cybersecurity?
We not,
We probably have.
like, I don't feel comfortable making that decision.
No, I was just thinking about if they could review them. I was just wondering if we needed them in person to answer questions. Or I'm just thinking if,
Maybe we could ask them to make recommendations.
We could discuss them there without having to have them physically present
To discuss the minutes.
in an executive session. And then reconvene with, we've
So
been
if-
seeing their recommendations at that time,
Right,
just non-verbally, just on paper
yeah, right.
statement.
So were you suggesting that they would appear over Zoom? Or,
No,
okay.
they would either physically be present or they would send a recommendation based on the minutes that we send to them.
Okay.
I mean, with this, I don't know if this amount of time. But it might not be, what's 2 weeks? I don't know how busy they are.
We can also
I was just
ask
thinking-
for
And
availability.
if we did that, I would definitely say we would do that before we do cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Should we have some sort of standing, because I was gonna say logistically, like, if we knew that, let's say, we are supposed to review these, whatever, like 3 months, 6 months, whatever we decided on, I forget, for minutes.
Three.
Right, so if we know this can be like a standing order, it's not to say like have them on retainer, but like have it already plugged in, like, hey, you know, on whatever date, we're gonna send you these, if you can review them and send us notes, so then they don't have to attend every 3 months. Even if we have to hold an executive session every 3 months to go over those, it might not be as belabored or as costly
Mhm.
if we were getting a statement from them rather than paying for their time.
And the other thing is, to get these in enough time that people can really review them. I mean, last time it was kind of a forced surprise, on all of us. As long as we have enough time, we can really review them. It'd be nice if we could release some of these, without having, before we had the whole, a lot to consider
Yeah.
and a lot
Oh,
to
yeah.
read. So hopefully this time will be a little bit easier.
Yeah, because I imagine this is gonna be fewer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Significant.
Yeah.
Yeah. Wonderful.
But yeah, let's plan on it, asking the.
So we'll check for their availability. and go from there. Probably, I can't remember what her last name is, Attorney Layla? That what her first name is? Layla?
I think so.
Yeah, I can't remember her last name. My apologies.
Let's check the rest of these agenda items. But that looks good. Is there anything under first readings?
Hold on. Okay,
Kathy, we had,
Take some,
there we go.
take some corn on the cob, it's cool.
Kathy, you had said something about, was there a first reading for zoning ordinance or is that all
So
put off?
it's not a first reading, it's just like a notice to the public.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, and that will be
Development Zoning coming
zoning notice.
on the next committee chairs for
Yeah.
next month. BDC.
No.
Great, so I think that covers everything. Does anyone else has anything else? I guess I'll just take a motion to adjourn.
I moved.
I'll second that.
I guess we have to do a roll call vote?
You have somebody online?
Yep.
Yes, you do.
Thank you, Parliament.
We didn't do roll call attendance, by the way.
Motion to adjourn, Counselor Bottomley,
Yes.
Counselor Gilmore,
Yes.
Counselor Bullock,
Yes.
Counselor Toronto.
Yep.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:01 PM.